Hello, good people, and welcome to Hillbilly Cat History. Priscilla the Myth Evolves, 1978. Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. We're going to get started with a song before we re-enter this article with Priscilla from 1978. Hi, Pamela. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. This is Pounding at the Gates.
I hear him loading up the stories, hear him dialing up the dates, hear his brothers turning witnesses to the pain he couldn't shake. Red says everything he got from him, but I can hear the hurt behind it like a crack of blame. Dave's boiling blood is pounding on the gates of Graceland, shouting, face me like a man, but never knowing he was hurt. He left town in the night, not to hide, just to breathe, but they took it as a knife, as a wound they couldn't leave. They say they saved his life, they say they stood their ground, but he was burning from the inside and they never heard the sound. Face me like a man. He gave love and friendship every chance, but it slipped right through the fingers. Shattered, swallowed by the tracks of time. Sabotage his name. No, they're sabotaging their own pain. They loved him, yeah, he knows it, but they love the legend more than that. Brad's calling every friend Elvis ever had, asking dates, asking stories, turning memories into scrapbook for a book full of words as he wrote it for the money. Then he says he wrote it out of love, but love don't come with lawyers and a push from up above. Dave bursts in a gun, ball on his hip, says he ain't here to hurt nobody, just wants to look him in the eye and hear the words again. But the wolves were in the fold, the wolves they never saw. They saw the chunks who's in the spotlight, not the threat behind the wall. Say they knew his shape, they say they knew his fall, but they only saw the surface while he was screaming through it all. Face me like a man. Love and friendship every chance, but it slipped right through the fingers. Shattered, swallowed by the cracks of time. Sabotage his name. No, they're sabotaging their own pain. They loved him, yeah, he knows it, but they love the legend more than that. He called Red when he knew the book was coming. His voice was shaking like a sinner in the pew. He wasn't angry, his heart was broken. He was scared of losing those with who he shared the truth. And when the radio said his name that August morning, they pulled their cars to the side of the road. They cried, they froze, they remembered the man they couldn't reach anymore. Face me like a man. He was dying in slow motion, trying to hold the world together with a heart that lost devotion. Sabotage my name. No, this was always a two-way flame. You loved him, yeah, you know it, but you couldn't see the man in pain. He never meant to lose you. You were never meant to run. He didn't want to face the ending of the story you left undone.
Thank you for gathering here at Hillbilly Cat History, where we remember together and listen for the echoes. And today we're going to hear those echoes still from Priscilla, still from the same article that we've been slogging through. We've got more to go. Let's start with, well, what we always start with, what's on the bookshelf? And we got a non-Elvis book and an Elvis book. We'll start with the non-Elvis book. This one is True Grit by Charles Portis. An epic and a legend, and it says now a major film. This is the classic novel that the John Wayne movie is based on, and I believe there's a remake of it, not with John Wayne. Lots and lots of text on the back. One of these large-sized paperback books. I really like John Wayne. I like True Grit. I like Rooster Cogburn, but I've just never gotten to the point where I'm able to read this book. So it's on the bookshelf, waiting to be read. And then that was the non-Elvis book. The Elvis book. Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. This one is taken care of, or still taken care of business. Elvis. By Sonny West with Marshall Terrell. Now, Marshall, that's the guy with the typewriter. Now, this was a later period of time, so Marshall probably had a computer, some kind of word processor. He's the guy that got this ready for publication. There's a picture of Elvis on the back in the Jeep in Hawaii, 1973. You can see Sonny's in the Jeep with him. This is Aloha from Hawaii. Sonny West had a front seat on the roller coaster ride that made up the last 2 decades of Elvis Presley's life. And this book came out 2007. Sonny's no longer with us, so this is the last of the Sonny books. Of course, he had Elvis What Happened, and in this one, he tells it the way he wanted it to be told, because he said they didn't tell it right in Elvis What Happened. Now, this book is a lot thicker than Elvis What Happened, and there's more stuff in it, but I'm not sure that it tells anything a whole lot differently. You'd have to read it for yourself to be sure, but again, a lot of people who are going to read about Elvis, this is going to be one of those they're going to have on the bookshelf, because Sonny was one of the Memphis Mafia right up until he got terminated in 1976. And of course, he's one of the 3 infamous that wrote Elvis What Happened. So people are always wondering, about Sonny. And that kind of made a mini career for him at the end of his life. He was going around and doing a lot of Elvis talks and such. You can see a lot of those on the internet, on YouTube. And Francis says, does anyone here think Sonny and Red regretted writing the book? If Sonny regretted it, he regretted it so much that he wrote a second book, right? And Red was working on another book. Dave wrote a second book. I don't know that that's the work of people who regretted the first book that got published. Maybe it is. Maybe they're all telling it right. But again, when you read Dave's book, that's where he reveals he went to Dr. Gotham's house. He had his gun strapped on. He demanded to see Elvis. So, I don't know. I don't think that part was in Elvis What Happened. And for Dave, it might have been better if it had just not ever got published, but so regretted, I don't know. I think they regretted spending all the money. They regretted that a lot. But I might be just very harsh on them. It's only my opinion. Everybody feel free to put whatever opinion that you have in the chat, into the comments. People have wrestled with these thoughts about Sonny and Dave and Red for a long time. I got a whole series where we go through the recorded phone call. And it's a long series to get through that whole phone call. But we learn a lot of things, like Elvis played racquetball 5 times a night, or 5 times a week at night in 1975 and 1976, which kind of blows away this theory that he locked himself in his bedroom and would never come out. Debbie says that she's in agreement with me. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate your opinion. And Elizabeth says she doesn't think they regretted it at all. And Frances says she didn't know they wrote more similar books. I think they thought the books were different. Now, Red's never got published, but Dave's is like listening to a rant out of his own mind. If you watch him talk, where he gets very excited on some of these YouTube clips, it's like reading that. Sonny's is more professional. They slip in a whole lot of historically grounded stuff. Like, the writer does a fairly decent job with that, but he makes some major time errors in Sonny's own timeline. So there are some issues with the book, and then a lot of the stories are the same ones that were in Elvis, What Happened? And it's not the stories that are the issue, it's the perspective of the stories and the way they're told. Sonny believed right until the end that Elvis was a drug abuser. That's what he died from. Hi, Monica. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. She says she doesn't feel they regretted everything. And Pamela says, not sure, but they never actually said they were sorry. I don't think they ever did either. They twist that sorry around every time they said it into something like, I'm sorry that the book wasn't accepted by others in the way that we wanted it to be out there. It's not really a sorry that it was done or that anything was said. So did they regret it? I don't think they ever understood what really happened. Like, they kept saying things like they didn't put the things that we wanted in the book, and they didn't. But then when they went to write these, they put the same stuff in. And Jen says that I would have hoped they regretted it, but everything points to that they didn't. Right, I would have hoped they did too. I'm sure Elvis hoped they did. And he gave them a chance not to do it. And she says they didn't think he would die, but what would have happened to their relationship if he didn't, we'll never know. This was a rough one. How could they ever come back to Elvis without their own shame would keep them from coming back to Elvis at that point, I would think. But Sonny and Dave, they kind of basked in a glory of the moment with the press and such. So it's all very, very odd and weird. But we're really here to look at Priscilla. So let's take a look at Priscilla's Myth Evolves 1978. That's the year that the magazine article is that we're looking at. We just got some pictures of Priscilla around 1978. This was 76, 77 right here. But here's 78, and she's with Michael Edwards. And Frances says it's so sad they wrote the book. Billy Smith said he would have rehired them back, just a matter of time. Yeah, if they had accepted Elvis's offer that everything would work out, if they just walked away from the deal and did not publish the book, then I think that he might have brought at least Red and Sonny back. He'd made indications on the phone he wasn't really keen about bringing Dave back. And Monica says there is no excuse for writing the book as she sees it. And Elizabeth agrees. And Frances says that she absolutely agrees there's no excuse for writing that disgusting book. The only possible excuse was to get Elvis to actually talk to them, but then he called. So once he'd called and once you'd had the chance to have your say, there really was no point in moving forward with the book. Now, could we say that it's inexcusable to even get that far? Probably, but they felt like this was the only way to talk to him, and that I can kind of accept. But then they go all the way and they put it out into the public. And Debbie says that Dave still talks bad about Elvis. He does. It's a wound for him that's never healed. Now here's Priscilla, January of 78. We've not really looked at this particular article yet, but she's got a really interesting bikini. And Priscilla with Mike Edwards. This is the actual magazine we're looking at, the National Enquirer. From August of 1978, 1 year after Elvis had passed away. And Jen says that Dave does still talk bad about Elvis, and he's arrogant, mean, and bitter. He's locked himself into a cage. He doesn't have any choice. He's in this mental cage, and if he breaks out, it means he's got years and years and years of things that he's done wrong, that he's said wrong, that he's looked at things wrong, and he can't even face that. And Frances says she's seen some of his rants about Elvis. And Pamela says they had probably already had payment and spent it, and they had to do the book. They were about to get payment. They weren't really going to get the payment till after the month was over, is the way that I'm understanding it. Now, I don't have any actual proof of that. But Red kind of indicates on the phone that there's stuff waiting. But I do think there's been payments to lock them into things. There's definitely been some kind of exchange. But I don't think Rupert would have given them all the money without ensuring that they stayed to give all of the interviews that he needed. Once they had all of the tapes locked down, the 300 hours, as Steve Dunleavy says, which seems impossible, but maybe they've got 300 hours of this. And where is it? I mean, who wouldn't be paying to hear that? That would have sold for a lot of money at any time during the last 50 years. So that seems like quite a claim on Steve Dunleavy's part that there was 300 hours. But there was apparently a lot of tape somewhere. It's a physical format, and there would have been a bunch of them. It would have been a substantial box or boxes of tapes. And then they would have got paid, but by the time Elvis passed away, yes, all the money's gone. My belief is they've got maybe a couple $1,000s left each, because they only got about $17,000 each. Then when the book started selling, they started receiving royalty payments, and the first royalty payments would have been very large, because there would have been a lot of books sold, and the next royalty payments would have been almost as large, and then they would have dwindled quickly. And Monica says that one just doesn't write books about one another, especially not that kind of book in her world. I think that's a good point. Hi, Luann. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. 6:17 Monday morning in the AM in Australia, in Sydney. So Luann's gotten up early to be with us all. And Mark says they made their beds and Hebler can't justify his emotions. There's a good point there as well. Let's get into this article that we're most of the way into. And Priscilla says, I felt Elvis that he had enough money and he should just take time off to travel. I wanted to go to Europe, to Africa, to go on safari, to go camping. But Elvis had commitments that had been planned years ahead. He kept telling me, we have plenty of time to travel. I was disappointed, but I kept thinking that everything would work itself out. But it didn't get any better. The times Elvis could make an anniversary or could not make an anniversary became a way of life. So Priscilla says that Elvis, that he missed a lot of important dates to Priscilla. Dates that should have been important to their relationship, their anniversary. That's interesting. Maybe we should map out all of their anniversaries, which would be May 1st of each year after they were married, and see where Elvis was and what he was doing. I can see how that would feel important to Priscilla. She says, I was living in an ivory tower. The world around me wasn't even real. I had all the material things money could buy. I was signing checks for thousands of dollars and never having to worry about the bank balance. Now, that's kind of nice, never having to worry about the bank balance. Yet you're still signing the checks. I assume that means she was purchasing things. And she has all the material things money could buy. Frances says that Elvis was very good to those guys, that Vernon was one who fired them, and Elvis felt so hurt and betrayed. He did. And it all comes out in that phone call. And Frances says Priscilla camping, she can't imagine her doing that. And Luann says that Dave Hebler has no remorse. And Jen says she knows maybe glamping. And Monica says, oh no, her hair could be messed up. And on safari, I mean, safari's like super camping. And there's like dangerous animals and stuff. So Priscilla doesn't have to worry about the bank balance, and she says, I felt like a prisoner. I dreaded having to leave just to go to a drugstore because I knew I had to go through that crowd of fans at the gate. I'm wondering about that because I believe there's a second gate to Graceland. I know where it's at. There's no fans around it. And you can go out that way. It's the way most of them went out. I feel like Priscilla would have eventually been told that there was a second gate and how to get out. But she felt that she had to go through that crowd of fans at the gate. She says, I couldn't go out like most housewives can with their hair unwashed and without any fresh makeup. I was on display. The wife of Elvis Presley. So whenever I went out, I had to dress up. So Priscilla, she felt the responsibility to look good when she went out. And Pamela says, well, why didn't she sneak out the back? So she had the same thought I did. There's a back gate. Now it actually comes out just down the street from the front gate, but most people don't know that it goes to Graceland. And Jen says, who did she think she was married to? And Jen says that she would have loved it and been nice to the fans. And Monica says, poor Priscilla. So every time she had to look good and go through the fans. And Priscilla said, and I could feel the resentment as I went through the fans. Many of them hated me because I was Elvis's wife. Now, we've kind of made light of the fact that she didn't like to go through the fans, but that does sound kind of true. Maybe she was picking up on that. I've heard fans that have said things similar to that about the way they felt about Priscilla. I know there were a lot of women and young girls that idolized her as well, though, and tried to look like her. But she says she could feel it there at the gates, and maybe she could. Maybe that is a decent reason not to want to go out through them. but she could have gone out through the back. And Pamela says she managed to go to school and no one reported on it. That's true as well. Just a couple of years before, nothing's changed other than the marriage certificate. And Lisa Marie, a year later. And Frances says that Priscilla wouldn't go anywhere to talk about Elvis unless she gets paid alive. And Elizabeth says there's been a couple of times where fans tried to assault her. Yeah, so I could see there's always a security issue with the fans. I do understand, even for Elvis, that was there. And she could have been scared of that. I've got to allow her that. But not knowing that she could just drive out through the back, I think she knew that. So she's trying to make some kind of point here. So there's a bit of a twisting in a specific kind of projection going on. Priscilla says, I thought the birth of Lisa would improve things. Elvis was ecstatic when she was born. He was the proudest father in the world. But it didn't mean he could spend more time at home. He tried to make up for his long absences by spending as much time with the family as possible. We'd have picnics in the garden, and like any proud father, Elvis took hundreds of snapshots of his baby daughter. Where do you think those hundreds of snapshots are? I know I've seen some pictures of Lisa as a baby, but I've never seen hundreds of snapshots. And you'd think they'd still be there at Graceland, right? That they're somewhere in the archives? I wondered if Riley's even seen hundreds of snapshots. And Luann says that Priscilla wanted to be acting or celebrity business, and she married a superstar. So what is she on about? And Mark says she actually wanted to worry about bank balances. And Jen says she remembers the story about the fight that she got into in California. I know the one you're talking about now that you mentioned that. There was some hair pulling and slapping or something. We'll have to get into that one of these days. And Debbie's saying, are you talking about the ladies who hit Priscilla? Yeah, they were rough. And Jen saying she thinks they were sisters. Yeah, I think it was out there in Los Angeles. And they did not like Priscilla. Apparently they'd followed them around to some different houses, though, and they didn't like her at any of the houses. And Debbie says that Elvis was mad and he did something to their car. Yeah, he basically banned them away. Made it clear he didn't want any fans that would harm anybody, especially not Priscilla. Priscilla says, those were beautiful times, but they didn't fill the void within me. I needed to do something with my life. So she says that Elvis couldn't spend more time at home, that he has a limited amount of time. But he did try to make up for it with, it sounds like, high quality time. And she's even mentioning picnics in the garden. I'm assuming that's the meditation garden. And that he took pictures of Lisa Marie, hundreds of snapshots. But she says that these were beautiful times, but they didn't fill the void within her. So I assume she needed more. She says she needed something to do with her life. I'm assuming she's talking about the time when Lisa is less than 1 year old, or between the ages of 1 and 2. I'm not sure my mother would have described her life during that point as needing to find something to do. She says, I tried painting, but that didn't work. I turned to dancing and it helped some. I even suggested to Elvis that I go to college. And Elvis said, what do you need to do that for? You don't need to do that. Basically, Elvis wanted his women to be at home. and that he was oblivious. See, we got to flip pages here. Let's see. All right, I think I found it. It says that he was oblivious of how I felt. I never told him I was so bored. So Elvis was gone long periods of time. When he came back, he spent high quality time with them, which included Lisa Marie. And Priscilla felt that he was oblivious to the way that she felt about needing to do something other than, I guess, be a mother to Lisa Marie. And then she says, I never told him I was so bored. Well, that seems kind of unfair. He never really had a chance to respond to that then, and there was an expectation that he would just know. I think a lot of people that love another person feel like they can read their minds. That's what love means, that it's some kind of telepathy, but it's not. It's not possible to do that with another person. It turns out that that other person still as much a mystery to the other one as always. They just have deep feelings for each other. But Priscilla had an expectation Elvis would know that she was bored, even though everything was going as it had for years. Plus, she had Lisa Marie. And Frances says that she saw that Priscilla was interested in Patrick Duffy when she was on Dallas, but that Patrick was not interested in Lisa Marie. And Pamela says, so basically Priscilla did not want to be at home with her baby. And Jen says, bingo. And Frances says that she believes that Priscilla never wanted to be a mother. And she thinks that Priscilla resented Lisa for how much attention Elvis gave Lisa. There's a little bit of a reflection of that in this article, because when she mentions the quality time, she also is mentioning Lisa. But that's really the only time that Lisa's brought up. So in one side, it's sweet because it shows that Elvis was spending quality time with Lisa. But then it shows that Priscilla doesn't seem to be appreciative of that, because her next sentences are, it did not fulfill me. So it must have not been quality time towards Priscilla, or she didn't take it that way. And Frances says that being a mother is a job, and it can be a challenge at times, but it's the greatest blessing. And I do feel like Priscilla, in this article, she kind of telegraphs this to us in many different accounts, but also in this article, that she doesn't really find fulfillment as a mother. And Elizabeth says that we watched Donna Presley today, and she said that Elvis did not want to get married. And Donna says that Elvis told them that. Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet. And Luann says that she loves Elvis, and that she thinks that they lacked communication in their marriage. And he had to go out to be Elvis Presley. That was the job function that he had, and therefore he'd had to be away. That was just part of being Elvis, and that their marriage lacked communication. I think that's a very wise thing to say. And here it is. Priscilla says, I never told him. Yet she did hold him responsible for not knowing. And Monica says maybe she should have chosen another husband. I think it might be any husband that what we're seeing here are reflections of Priscilla's own insecurity and fears, and that she would have carried this into any relationship. And Jen says that Donna's video was really good, and she believes he did not want to be married either, but he felt he had no choice. And Pamela says she thinks Elvis expected Priscilla to be a mother in the same way Gladys was. I agree with that, and I would go farther and say that that's the way Elvis saw Priscilla once Lisa was born. That none of Priscilla's actions or what she did or what was told to him, even in the divorce, even as she came back for more money, even as he was angry at her, could truly break that vision that she was Gladys. And this was just a very strange reflection of Gladys. But that he had this great reverence for mothers, and it carried over to her because she was the mother of his child. And Debbie's asked me if I'd heard about those two sisters who hit Priscilla. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a clip of them telling the story one time. To see if I can find that somewhere. And Priscilla says that when Elvis came home from road trips, I was always there as the admiring wife. He didn't know that inside I was dying a little. Well, that's a very important thing to say, actually. Elvis did not know that I, Priscilla, was dying a little inside. So he didn't know. She says it right there. She didn't tell him. He did not know. Now, she's a little angry that he's oblivious to it. And maybe there's some reason to be angry at your loved one if they don't notice your own pain and suffering, but I don't know, it's a hard way to judge other people because you did not communicate it. And then Priscilla says, even Lisa had to face the pressures of being part of the Presley family. Whenever I took her out with me, I had to hide her under the car seat just so we wouldn't be followed by photographers. What I wanted most was just a normal life for Lisa and me. All right, there's interesting stuff in this particular paragraph too. You know, I think most people just skim right by this stuff, but it's all right here. And Debbie says that Priscilla did become an actress and also a businesswoman, and her stepfather became a businessman. They owned property. That's all true. And Monica says that she sees Priscilla as being a spoiled wife. Well, she did say she could spend whatever she wanted, and she did not have to worry about the bottom line. That's a lot of spoiling. In this paragraph, Priscilla says Lisa had to face pressures of being part of the Presley family. That's important. And it's true, and she faced them her entire life. She didn't ask for them, but she was burdened with them forever. And then Priscilla says, whenever I took Lisa out with me, I had to hide her under the car seat. And why did she have to hide her under the car seat? Just so we wouldn't be followed by photographers. Now, the interesting part here is that the photographers don't follow Priscilla. They follow Lisa Marie. If she doesn't take Lisa Marie, the photographers don't come. They wait at Graceland for Lisa Marie, even though she's a child. And this points to something else, because Priscilla just got done saying, I don't like to go out through all these fans and they yell at me that they hate me and all these things. And yet, when she takes Lisa Marie, that's when the photographers follow. I guess that's not fans exactly, but it's all an interesting commentary on these different people that are hanging around Graceland and what their objectives are and what they want and how they don't want to photograph Priscilla. She's almost a little annoyed about that. They want Lisa. So if she goes out by herself, she doesn't have to take this extra precaution. They're just not going to follow her anyway. And then she says, what I wanted most was a normal life for Lisa and me. Well, the normal life for Lisa would be she wouldn't have to hide under the car seat. And as long as they don't take her out, she doesn't have to. But it is somewhat abnormal that she has to stay at Graceland all the time if they don't take her away. Take her out and hide her under the car seat. But for Priscilla, she already has that normal life in every way. If she goes out the back exit and not through the fans in the front, and if she didn't use Elvis's money at the store, then she would have a normal life for herself. I guess that wouldn't be Lisa and her. And so there's some definition of normal that she wants, and it has to include both her and Lisa. And Luann says that Priscilla's nature was to complain at anything. And Jen says that Priscilla could have married a man who wasn't a galaxy, and that she's a little bit ridiculous with this. And Monica says, a normal life? How could she have expected that? And Luann says, so Priscilla complains of staying home, but she's open to spending more money. And Pamela says that she thinks Priscilla protests too much. And Frances says that Priscilla's not complaining now about all the recognition she gets strictly because of Elvis, all the money she got after the divorce. So yeah, there's perspectives change depending on where you stand in life. Hi, Tori. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate seeing you here. And speaking of exactly where you're at, Priscilla says, in mid-1972, I resolved that life was not going to change. Elvis would have to go his way, and I would have to go mine. That's kind of a funny statement, too, because the only one that has to go is really her, because he's going the same way. His trajectory is... He's like a comet, right? You're not changing the trajectory of Elvis Presley's life, even though you're his wife. And I understand for her, that must have been very difficult and painful to accept, that she had chained herself to this comet and that her own gravity wasn't enough to change where this comet was going, its speed, its direction, anything. So she says he's got to go his own way. Well, that's the way he's always been going. And so now she's going to have to unchain herself from that comet and move on her own way. Let's take a look at some more of this clip with Rona Barrett that Priscilla participated in 1978. This is the same year.
You feel about seeing all the things that happened this past year? What was your reaction to it?
It hurts. I knew it would happen. I could see it coming the day that he died. You know, it was just the beginning. And it's been a lot of exploitation. And I think what hurts mostly is the people that were very close. And again, you know, it's human nature and you try to justify it, but it still hurts.
Could you tell me what you were thinking not long ago, that day in Vegas when you went for the unveiling of Elvis's statue?
it was a touching moment. It was sitting on stage, knowing what we were doing there. It didn't seem real. Looking out at the audience, seeing all the people there, and having them play his music. I can't even put it in words. It wasn't right. It was beautiful that they were presenting this statue, but it didn't feel right. Elvis wasn't there.
Do you get any special feelings if you turn on your car radio or turn on your house radio and hear Elvis's music?
Oh, absolutely. Because I know what was going on during all the songs that were being recorded at the time. What was said, what the feeling was toward the song, if he should do the song. So the memory of what was happening during that time comes up. It's difficult. It's difficult listening to the records. It's difficult. Your mind starts to wonder. It starts to go back, and again you try to think, well, that's not Elvis, but you can't escape it.
I'm curious to know, did Elvis at any time sit and discuss with you his performances?
Sure. Oh, yeah. There was some he loved, some he hated, some he didn't want to do, some he had fun with, but Elvis was a perfectionist. If a performance didn't go like he wanted it, he'd be upset for days over it.
Could he accept criticism?
Not really, no. If it came from him, yes. I think he always knew what he did.
Did all of you hide, let's say, reviews?
Yes.
You hid reviews
Yes,
from him?
Absolutely.
Did he not ask any of you at any time, did anybody say anything about me?
Yeah,
and what would you say to him?
They were great. Wonderful reviews. They were, they were just great. Or, well, they weren't the best, but hey, it's okay.
Why did Elvis surround himself with what we affectionately termed the Memphis Mafia, the boys who constantly, I believe, lived with you and him what appeared to be morning, noon, and night?
He was comfortable. He was comfortable, he was secure. He knew everyone, they knew him. He was able to do what he wanted, when he wanted, everyone understood. He could throw his temper tantrums, no one would condemn him. He was at ease. He was around people that were with him.
So Rona asked Priscilla, why does Elvis want the Memphis Mafia around him? And then she explains that he could engage in bad behavior and they would not condemn him. And I think there is some truth to that he could not, he's only a human being. He's going to have times where he is able to let off steam. People that he can say things to that will say, I know exactly what you mean. You're right. I understand. You got a right to feel that way, so that he can work through those emotions. He surrounded himself with people that could do that because it was important that he not take out those kind of emotions on people who would not understand what was going on. And so they were there in order to see him in those moments. But that's a sign of the trust that he gave to each one of them. Priscilla kind of feels that it allowed him to engage in more bad behavior, which in a way I could see where that's true. But at the same time, Priscilla never felt, even at this point in 1978, anything close to the responsibility or crushing pressure that Elvis felt every single day as the Elvis Presley machine grew larger and larger and larger from 1960 through 1967. She doesn't really even understand the weight that she put on his shoulders during that same period.
Him for a long period of time, where most most people have friends and may see them throughout a lifetime, you know, here and there. Elvis liked his friends with him because then you can share and you can do and be who you want. He really loved that. He loved having his family and friends around him.
Priscilla, was he not at ease meeting new people?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't comfortable having someone that he didn't know very well come in.
He wasn't comfortable with people who would not understand all of his facets, and therefore he could not show those facets. He could be more free and open with the Memphis Mafia because they had seen him at his worst in some cases, and he'd seen them at their worst because that's family. That's why some friends feel like family, and it's not because you feel like they would stand by you if they saw you at your worst. It's because they already have. That's what family is. And when you were a child, you acted in terrible ways with your family. We all did. And yet they still kept us around, at least most of us, in most cases. And that's what Elvis was striving for with these people around him. He wanted that same feeling of family. And for a while, they were able to achieve it at different levels. And Priscilla, she's reflecting some of that here in the interview, but she's also reflecting that it never felt natural to her, that she couldn't function correctly in this kind of environment. And it says something about the amount of herself that she needed to keep under wraps, or that she didn't want these people to see, that she couldn't be as free with them as Elvis was. And Luann says that she's insulting Elvis behind his back and ruining his reputation. And this is before she's really in control, I believe, of Graceland. This would be the year when, I don't think Vernon passes away for another year or two. So there's still some question of exactly what her future is going to be. And that's why I think she's trying to jumpstart her acting career.
You had a problem. Could you sit with Elvis? Would he take the time to listen to what was aching you? And could he comfort you?
I very rarely went to him with any problems. It's a very strange relationship. It was a love, but I never wanted to upset him because he took it so hard. If I were to come to him with a problem, it would hurt him deeply. So I worked it out myself.
That must have been very tough.
Now, what do you think she's talking about when she says that she had problems and she could not work them out by bringing them to Elvis? She had to work them out herself. That he would not understand her problems. That he would be upset by her telling him what her problems were. And I think she's already told us that she did not tell Elvis she was bored. I think that was one of her problems. She did not tell Elvis that she felt like she was dying inside because she was married to him. She says that would have hurt him if she'd said that. Well, probably so. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of pain that's got to come with communication. And a marriage like this, I don't think there's anybody that's been married who will say that there's never been a time when their spouse didn't tell them something that hurt them, or who would also agree that that thing that hurt them, it would have been better if they'd never been told. Most of the time, whatever it is that hurt us, that we were told, that we wish maybe we hadn't been told, but we needed to know it. Like, we really needed to know it, and it was terrible. And now that knowledge is out of the way, got worked through, but Priscilla didn't give Elvis that chance. So, not saying that Elvis was perfect in their relationship or that the divorce was all Priscilla's fault and not Elvis's, but she's revealing communication issues from her own side. She hasn't really said that Elvis didn't communicate with her. I feel certain that he did tell her things that bothered him. He seemed to tell a lot of people things that bothered him, that he was fairly open in his communications with those around him, but she's also expressed that it made her uncomfortable to be open in communications with others in the way that he was. And Monica says that she believes Elvis trusted the guys in the beginning and felt safe with them. Yeah, I think so. And Mark's asking whatever became of Priscilla's parents. Well, they supported her all throughout her life, as long as they were alive. I think they're both gone now. Not positive, but I think they both are. And Luann says, this is what you call a low act. And Jen says, that's what marriages are all about. You have to talk to your spouse. And Monica says, who thinks friends are not friends anymore? And Pamela says that she just really doesn't believe Priscilla. And Monica again says, poor Priscilla. And Tori says that Elvis felt under an enormous amount of pressure and that he didn't want to marry her. He wouldn't have married her at all if she had told him initially that she felt like it was going to cause her to die inside a little bit every day. Now, I'm sure she didn't feel that when they got married either, but that's a very interesting way to describe your marriage. Maybe not one that was disintegrating, but then to describe the man that you were married to as the love of your life. That, you know, so the whole thing is very odd, and it's very, very personally Priscilla. But that's where we've got to leave it for today, because we are at the end of the hour. So I do want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And we're going to go out of here on a song like we always do. I think today's song will be Heartache and Frustration, because there's a lot of that Priscilla's talking about. Still got a lot of Priscilla to go. So I think that's what we're still going to do tomorrow. We haven't quite reached the end of either this article or the interview, so we got to at least do that. So I want all of you to keep on taking care of business. This is Heartache and Frustration. Thank you so much for being here.
You walk through the chapel, vows gone too fast. Flashbulbs were burning, but the moment didn't last. He carried us singing, sunlight in their bed, but the silence kept whispering inside her head. He's stuck in a hotel can't hold. Every room is crowded, every story grows cold. Frustration's his shadow, it won't let him be. Heartbreak keeps knocking, old flames you can see. He called her mine, kissed her in the light. She cooked his bacon, held him through the night. But a picture was simple, just two alone, while the world kept intruding. Love turned to stone. Their eyes met again, the fire's still strong. He dropped to one knee, said he loved her all along, but the door closed behind him. The moment couldn't stay. She felt that he faded as he walked away on the speedway set. She fell in too deep. He kissed her softly, a secret she'd keep. I'm sorry, he whispered, then he let her go. Now she treasures the memory more than an old. He's stuck in a hotel of love he can't hold. Every room is haunted, every story grows cold. Frustration and heartache, they echo through time. Three women, one singer, lost in the rhyme. Love's a hotel. He's trapped in the hall. Doors keep on closing. He can't find home at all.